Hey everybody, welcome back to BK's Bullets. Today we're going to be talking about Batman The Long Halloween Part 1. We're talking about the animated movie. Hey everybody, and welcome back to BK's Bullets. As always, I am your host, Brent, and we're going to be talking about the animated adaptation of Batman The Long Halloween. We're going to talk Part 1, which just came out today. And before we do that, let me ask you to please subscribe. Helps me out, lets the channel grow, helps you know when I drop new videos, all the good stuff. Hit that bell if you're really crazy. So, Batman The Long Halloween. What is it? Well, this is an animated film based on the legendary classic graphic novel Batman The Long Halloween. This is my copy. This is actually my second copy. I've read this multiple times. There was like a time in high school and college where I was reading this like almost every year. I haven't read it in probably 5 years or so. So this is, written by Tim Sale, drawn by Jeff Loeb. It takes place over 12 or 13 issues, I believe, from one Halloween to the next. And it's a murder mystery, and that's what this movie is adapting, is this story. But how do they do it? I mean, they're trying to do the same thing they did with Dark Knight Returns. A couple years ago, they adapted Dark Knight Returns into this animated film, and they did it in 2 parts. And Dark Knight Returns worked really well in this 2-part format because it was kind of like in Dark Knight Returns, the book anyway is like 4 chapters, right? Chapter 1, Chapter 2 deal with the mutants. Chapter 3 and 4 deal with Joker and Superman. So, Dark Knight Returns Part 1 had a full arc all the way through the first movie, the Part 1. And Chapter 2 was not quite as full arcy as Part 1, but it was still good enough because you had these 2 dynamic episodes with Joker and with Superman that kind of, they're so iconic and things like that it took your attention away from the fact that it was not as straightforward as Part 1. So, but altogether, they make a great combination, and I would recommend to anybody to go watch the Dark Knight Returns animated adaptations. I think it's the best thing that DC's done so far. They are phenomenal. So, they're trying to do the same thing here with Long Halloween and do it in 2 parts. I think mainly because it's, a 13-issue series and stuff like that, but at the same time, they did Batman Hush, which I did like that adaptation. But they did that in the animated universe that it was set in, and that's a 12-part story, and I thought they did a pretty good job of squishing that down into a 70-minute film at the time. This one, with these new films, this new style, this new executive producer, whatever you want to call it, now that we're done with the animated universe kind of all going together, I think we're getting longer films. Like this one was an hour and a half, hour and 25 minutes, which is one of the longest DC animated films that they've ever produced. Because normally you would get them, they'd be 70 minutes, and they started creeping up on 80, and now they're going even longer. So I don't know exactly why they're getting longer. I'm not against it necessarily, but I think the cheapness of the animation and the brevity of the films before helped it, right? Because you had to do more in less time, and that made the writers and producers pace things more in a way that was more exciting to watch and felt like you got enough of a chunk out of this, 70, 80-minute animated movie instead of a full-length feature film like this is, right? So we have this new animated style. This is the same style we got from Superman, Man of Tomorrow, and the Justice League or Justice Society of America movie, which I panned. I hated that movie. I don't dislike this Long Halloween movie as much as I'm a little bit puzzled by it. And I think there's a lot of things going on with the puzzling, but I think the first thing really is that this Long Halloween, the story itself, has never been the greatest mystery. I always thought the ending was really, really weird. It's kind of a pull the rug out from under your feet ending in the entire graphic novel. So we'll talk about it when we get to Part 2 in a month or so, whenever it comes out. I think it's a month, 2 months away. It's not that far. But we'll talk about the ending and what it did in the comics versus whatever they end up doing here in the animated movie. But I always felt like the ending of Long Halloween was a pull the rug out from under you moment. It was less about the mystery as it is about the forming of the team of Batman, Harvey Dent, and Jim Gordon, and then the kind of dissolution of that as we enter the phase of Gotham City where it's all about the maniacs and the crazies and stuff like that. Whereas the beginning of the story is all about the mobsters, and this is basically the Long Halloween is how Gotham City goes from being a mobster-oriented crime city to crazies, Batman villains-oriented crime city. That's really what it's about. There's a murder mystery, and that's the framing device for every issue. It takes place in a holiday. There's a holiday killer, and that takes a lot of the, talk during all the issues. But really what it's about is how Gotham City went from here to here. And you're kind of getting that in this movie, but to me, the mystery was never that satisfying. So when they're doing the animated adaptation here, they're really focusing on that on that mystery. And since the mystery was never that strong, I don't think it's that compelling in an animated form. Now, again, I think also because this new animated style, and I don't know if this is a difference because the movie is longer or they're using less music, and that's one thing that I noticed for sure in all of these animated films. Not Batman Soul of the Dragon. Batman Soul of the Dragon is a hella fun time, and that's kind of the old style. There's a whole lot of music, a whole lot of sound effects and stuff, where it seems like Superman Man of Tomorrow, this Justice Society movie that I hated, and Long Halloween Part 1 use a whole lot less music than the old animated films did. And it's more along the style of like Japanese animation or anime, right? I don't watch a whole lot of anime. I watch some. I remember watching Dragon Ball Z when I was a kid, but that was because there was fighting, and then there were some episodes where nothing happened. But to me, Japanese animation I watched Castlevania on Netflix. All 4 seasons of that I've seen. What was the other one? Blood of Zeus I really liked on Netflix. But the Japanese animation style, to me, has long pauses, long periods of silence to build tension. And they do that in this movie a whole lot. And I think they did it in Man of Tomorrow and Justice Society as well. And maybe that's the thing that I'm not clicking with these new films, is they're using this Japanese style of silence and storytelling, whereas usually when you're watching a movie or an animated movie, there's music constantly. There's always something going on, right? Like you watch Luca recently on Disney Plus. There's always music going on. I feel like if you go back to any of the old Dark Knight or Batman Mask of the Phantasm, there's music going on. Jim just did a review of Green Lantern Emerald Knights. I think there's probably a whole lot of music in there as well. So these new films, I feel like they're not using as much music, and because there's not a lot of like stuff in the background and you just have these long silences or just people talking, it just brings the pace down to feel really, really slow, almost to a crawl, and you're like, why is nothing happening? When in reality stuff is happening, but you're just not as involved because there's not a whole lot going on in your brain. And the animation style, while cool and while I do like it, if it's not pulling me into the movie, I think it's not doing its job. And maybe the music is a factor there too. So, for the animation style, this new style, I really do like the look of it. But if it's not pulling me into the movie, then I don't think it's doing its job, and maybe I'm starting to dislike it. And this will be an ongoing conversation as long as they keep doing this style, honestly. And maybe that's one of the things that I so loved Batman Soul of the Dragon, because it wasn't this style. It was the old kind of Bruce Timm style, because he produced that particular film and not this one. And like that was the Justice League Unlimited kind of style and stuff like that. Whereas this one is this new style, and it's not as involved, and it's not pulling me in. So maybe, my review's a little slanted. But that's not to say this isn't a good movie. I still think that this is stronger, really a lot stronger than the Justice Society movie that was the last one that was released. I thought that one was terrible. You can go look at the comment sections down below on that film. It was like 50-50 on people commenting saying they loved it, or people saying I was right and they hated it. This, I think, is somewhere in between. It's not quite love with Soul of the Dragon. I was raving about that movie. And it's not quite hate with Justice Society of America. This is somewhere in between. And I think it's in between because of all these factors. You have the animation, which is cool to look at, but you have the lack of music that's not drawing you into the animation, right? You have a cool idea of a story, a classic story, a beloved Batman story, and this is one that I would will give out and will recommend to new readers of Batman who are interested in it. But at the same time, the reason I give the whole book out is because you get the whole book at once. And the mystery is not really the story, it's about the relationships and how they evolve with the mystery, or because of the mystery. That is the hook of the story: Batman, Gordon, and Dent. So when you only have half of that, and you have the animation, and the music lacking, and only half of the story, I don't know that it's really succeeding on a love level. I think we're still here in between. So all in all, is Batman: The Long Halloween Part 1 a good movie? Maybe. I don't know. I think so. I think we're teetering on the good side, but not quite great. And I think that's the difference between this Part 1 and Dark Knight Returns Part 1. Dark Knight Returns Part 1, you can definitely watch and say, that's a good movie. You can watch that by itself. Absolutely recommended. No doubt about it. And you didn't have to say, you should really watch Part 2 as well, or, whatever. Like, you can watch Dark Knight Returns Part 1 and be like, alright, I had a great fucking time watching that movie. Long Halloween Part 1, you're not really... I don't feel you're going to have a great time, honestly. I think because the story is chopped in half. It's the same way that, if you're watching... what was the last? Hunger Games Part 1, the final movie. Was it Mockingjay? Something like that. I don't know if you're gonna that Part 1 wasn't really satisfying. The same way that this suffers, the same way that Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 suffers. But those movies, they kind of like made an action climax and stuff to get you a big hook here, and they do that here, and it's weird where they leave this off. They leave this off right after New Year's, and in the book, New Year's is like issue 4 out of 12 or 13. So they're going to have to do a whole lot of work in the next movie to get through all of the holidays, because there's a whole lot. So I also thought that was a weird place to end off. And there was something that they did right at the end with, Falcone, and I was like, wait, what the fuck? That wasn't in the book. And then, I was like, are they going to pursue this? Because this is an interesting wrinkle, but they really kind of seems like they gave that character a definitive ending. So it seems to me like they're changing the ending of the book, which is fine. I liked what they did with the Hush ending, making the Riddler really the bad guy the entire time, as opposed to this puller behind the strings. That's also another Jeff Loeb story. So maybe Jeff Loeb, this is when we consider Long Halloween one of the best Jeff Loeb stories ever written, but we never talk about the story structure really, and he also wrote Batman Hush. So, and I also thought that ending kind of sucked. So maybe he's just bad at endings the same way J.J. Abrams is, or something like that. Or there's another writer, movie maker, that can't stick the endings sometimes. So, Zack Snyder's only good with his beginnings, kind of thing. I don't know. So I think this movie is teetering on good, enjoyable. But I really feel like you're not really going to have a good handle on how Part 1 is until you watch Part 2. Because it really does suffer from that Part 1, Part 2 virus of splitting all these movies apart. Do I think they could have done this in one movie? Yeah, I think they could have. Certainly could have. But you would not have gotten all the character development, and it would have just been a purely superficial mystery movie. And because this mystery is not that strong to begin with, it probably would have suffered that way. So I can see why they wanted to do Part 1 and Part 2. And on that level, as well as, we can, milk this for money, milk this for dollars. This is a really dense story. It's a beloved story, and people want to see a real adaptation here, the same way that they did with Dark Knight Returns. So, there's that. So, also of note, when you're watching this movie, and I had not read, like I said, I haven't read Long Halloween in 4 or 5 years. There was so much in this movie. I knew parts of The Dark Knight with Heath Ledger and Christian Bale, the Batman film from Chris Nolan, it was heavily inspired by this, but I didn't realize how inspired it was until I'm watching this movie, and I'm like, wait, like scene is right out of Dark Knight. That scene is right out of Dark Knight. And then I pulled my book off my shelf and was flipping through it, and I was like, oh no, of course. I mean, I knew it was inspired by Long Halloween when I was watching The Dark Knight. I didn't realize that they stole 2 scenes like almost entirely from that movie, and they are up front here in like the first 30 minutes. So if you sit up and go, wait a minute, they're stealing from Dark Knight, just know that they're not. They're stealing from themselves. Not really stealing from themselves. Dark Knight lifted these almost verbatim, this whole idea, and used it in that movie. So just know that it's not stealing from Dark Knight. This is where it came from. This is an adaptation of the original. So it does kind of take you out a little bit because Dark Knight is such a beloved movie. It's one of many people's favorite films if you're a comic book fan. So it might take you out of it a little bit, but I think you'll be okay once you realize, like, oh yeah, no, Dark Knight stole from this, not the other way around. So I feel like this movie's good, but it really takes a long time for you to be like, I'm kind of liking this movie. Like, for me, it wasn't until like the 30-minute mark out of this hour-and-a-half film that I was like, all right, I'm starting to like this. I'm getting into this. And that's when the Joker showed up. When the Joker shows up, I feel like this thing starts to come to life and breathe a little bit more. And that's something about Batman films. Unless you really have a compelling villain, or imposing villain or whatever, like you're not really gonna have an exciting Batman film. At least in animation, to me. But talking about the Joker, though, what do we want from a Joker nowadays? Like, so maybe this might need to be a separate video, but we're just gonna start the conversation here. We have Troy Baker, acclaimed video game voice artist, doing the Joker here. He's done it before in the Batman Arkham Origins game. He did the Joker there. He also voiced the Joker in the Return to Arkham Asylum animated movie that was based on those video games. So, in those times when he did the Joker, he was doing basically an impression of Mark Hamill's Joker. He does the same thing here. Now, Mark Hamill, I think, has said that he's done playing the Joker. Like, when he did the Killing Joke a couple years ago, I think he said, like, that was his last time. He's not coming back. Maybe Arkham Knight came out at the same time. One of those performances was, like, he said, this is my last time. Now, Mark Hamill, like, he's doing the He-Man cartoon. He sounds just like the Joker. I think Mark Hamill can really only do 1 or 2 voices. So, it feels like you're going to hear Mark Hamill's Joker as long as he's doing voice work as a villain, right? But do we want every animated Joker to be an imitation of that? Troy Baker does a good imitation, but I feel like since this is so far removed from that video game where it's based on using Mark Hamill there, or something like that, like Troy Baker had the opportunity to do something different. The character design is of the Joker is always the same. I feel like I would have liked to hear him do a different take, his own take. He also did. Troy Baker did this thing in the Telltale games with Batman. There were 2 seasons of that, Enemy Within, and I think the first one just called Batman: A Telltale Series. He did the Joker there, and that was a little bit, I feel like that was more removed from the Mark Hamill stuff he's doing here. So I maybe would have liked to have seen him do something entirely different. Like, if you're going to do the Joker, for me, like, go at it. Go with your best shot, but don't imitate Mark Hamill. I feel like that period of time is done unless you're doing something based in that Arkham video game universe, but other than that, I would do your own thing. So, that's that. So, let me know what you guys think about Long Halloween. I'm a little bit torn on this. I don't think it's terrible. It's not Justice Society terrible, but it's not Dark Knight Returns Part 1 fantastic and great. All the voice actors I feel do a good job. I like Jim Gordon. I like Josh Duhamel as Harvey Dent. I really like Jensen Ackles as Batman. I thought they were pretty good, but just this Part 1-ism, this Part 1 virus that it's got really makes this film suffer, and so it's teetering on good for me. So hopefully the second film, there's a whole lot to do. As I said, there's they only got through the first 4 or 5 issues of the book here. There's a whole lot to do in the next film, so let's hope they can pull it off and stick the landing on that one and turn this into a great adaptation of a Batman story in the same way that Batman Dark Knight Returns is a great animated adaptation as well. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Thank you for watching. We will see you guys next time in the Funny Pages.